Hey guys, episode 10 here. We are back on the Koballa episode, or the Koballa podcast, episode 10. And today we're going to talk about how we deal with our insecurities. Now, everybody has some type of insecurity that they deal with, either currently or in the past. And it's, it just, it's whether how it's all about how we deal with these insecurities, how we navigate through them. Some people let it get to them, and it really bothers them. It really affects the way they live their life and their decisions. For some others, they're more secure. They are able to face the insecurities that they have and sort it all out and resolve these issues that they may have in regards to their insecurities. And a lot of times it just feels like it's just a matter of perspective, just having a different perspective and not always focusing on the negatives of some of the things that you may be insecure about. Now, I for one am a flawed person. I'm not perfect by any means, and because of that, I definitely have insecurities. Even now, it's there's I wouldn't say there's that many. There's probably a few that bother me, but I think at my age I'm able to deal with it in a way where it's much more mature. It's more healthy approach to it. Sometimes I do get caught up in the insecurities and it does affect me, but when you get some outside perspective, when you get some sound advice, or when you realize the grander perspective, looking at it from the outside, you realize, like, oh, well, why do I need to be insecure about this certain thing? And it gives you perspective and makes you realize there's no need to be so insecure about certain things. And so I have that at mine at the age that I am right now. But definitely in the past, I've definitely struggled with dealing with insecurities, and it took a lot of time for me to even recognize what those insecurities were and what I needed to do to resolve them. A lot of growing pains, a lot of things that I needed to change about myself, or needed to change my perspective or attitude to really deal with these insecurities and these shortcomings uh, for myself. And so I could share a couple that I dealt with in the past, and maybe you could resonate with some of it, because we all have our own insecurities about certain things. Some things aren't really that big of a deal, and we make it a bigger deal than it actually is. And other things, like maybe there is a justification. Maybe there is a justification for these insecurities that we have, because maybe there's something at stake here that's much greater. And but still, how what do you do about it? What do you do about those instances where um maybe maybe your livelihood is on the line? Something very important's at stake. You still got to do something about it. You can't just freeze up and be paralyzed and not take action, right? And so the one I want to share, or one of the things, is that growing up, I would say physical attributes, not having the things, like physical things that males, that make them more attractive or make them perform better athletically. As I mentioned in the past, I've always been a pretty active person, really into sports. And the thing with sports is, if you want to really excel at a lot of these sports, you need to be fast, you need to be athletic, you need to be tall, and have strength. All these qualities and characteristics are much needed. But I was never the biggest kid. I was never the strongest. In fact, I was everything opposite of that. I was very small. Not too strong. Maybe a little strong for my height, for my size, and wasn't the fastest, wasn't the quickest. Had a little bit of coordination. It definitely developed just investing a lot of time into sports and um adapting those type of movements. Obviously, when you spend enough time doing a certain craft or doing certain things, you get better at it. And so definitely the skills developed in the sports, in some sports, and even to this day, it kind of allows me to play multiple sports. Uh, and I can pick things up a lot easier because I've been so active and invested in all sorts of activities. But at the same time, I've always wanted to pursue sports at a much higher level. And a lot of times to get to that next level, to get to that next step, that elite level of athleticism, of participating in sports at a very high level, you do need those traits. You do need the height. You do need the strength, the athleticism, the quickness, the speed, all of that. It's all required. It's a big factor. Obviously, skill matters and the hard work, the intangibles, of course, but you can't deny that the natural abilities, the natural athletic characteristics are just some things that are needed for you to really take your sport or your athletics to the next level. And my life gravitated around playing sports at that next level, maybe at the collegiate level or professional level. That was a dream, That was a dream. And a lot of kids have that dream, and it's a matter of like whether you have those attributes and whether you're willing to commit to it and work hard to get to a point where you're going to be good enough to play at that level. And so the insecurity was where I didn't have those natural attributes. As I mentioned, I was always small. I wasn't the biggest kid. I mean, even now I'm only 5'4", which is very short, I admit. And um again, not the strongest for my size. I do feel big on bit on the stronger side. I do have some athleticism, but I'm not at a professional level. I'm not at elite level. It's not that, and I wouldn't say that I would even want to be at that level because it's not like I'm a professional athlete. I do just like to stay in shape and just stay active and stay healthy. So to a certain extent, I do maintain just a certain level of athleticism just to be able to do the things that I enjoy doing, like playing basketball and playing jiu-jitsu. But going back to my insecurity, when I was much younger, that really bothered me a lot, and I remember just I put so much weight into me trying to grow taller because I felt like that was the one thing I just needed. But when I look back of what people say of what like how you end up taller, it's a lot of genetics, obviously. And even my family, we weren't a tall family, we weren't athletic family, so the attributes naturally genetically weren't even there to begin with. So at the time I didn't realize it, but I can see it now. It's like I wasn't really meant to be uh I wasn't really made to be in athletics, even though I enjoyed it and it was my passion. But my body wasn't wired for that. It wasn't meant for that. It's one thing if you have like two parents that played sports at a very high level, and you have kids, like those kids have it in their genes and probably have the attributes and already have like a head start for them to excel at sports. But that definitely wasn't me. And I didn't have that understanding when I was a kid, but I thought I could convince myself that if I do certain things to try to grow, that I could be this elite level athlete. And so I invested so much time and energy in trying to find ways to grow. Um, at the time, you're told that you just drink a lot of milk. So I drank like 4 cups a day, drinking milk all the time, thinking that it'll help make me grow. Despite what the genetics show me, I was kind of in denial and kind of delusional, not believing in the reality of what's to come. But I thought I could defy the genetics and kind of work my way into developing a better physical attribute. And so even as I worked hard, I tried to drink a lot of milk, try to sleep a lot, sleep at the right time, you know, and I play basketball, which, something like basketball, it's a sport that's supposed to help you grow a little bit, things like that. Certain types of like medicinal herbs that will help you grow a little taller at the time. There's like special types of herbs that we took that like my family were aware of that would essentially help me grow, or it's supposed to make you eat a lot, and um that might be the one thing I really didn't do since I was a picky eater. But I think later on I realized that around early on in high school, I realized I do need to eat a lot in order for me to try to grow, and I try to increase my appetite. But I think by then it was a little too late. Um, and so I felt like at the time, with the knowledge that I had, I did everything I could to try to enhance my physical attributes, and along the way, it's just that insecurity was there. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm short. Like I can't do the things that I want to do, especially playing basketball too, which is definitely a sport that requires height. So that's why it mattered to me so much, and I put so much time and energy invested into trying to grow, follow the techniques that will help me get taller. And along the way too, friends would tease you and make fun of you, how short you are, and it was, for the most part, it's all fun and games and it's all good. And at the same time, it did kind of bother me. It was like, oh man, that's like, man, I can't be that tall. I feel like I work so hard towards trying to grow, and I I can't seem to have enough control over it. No matter what I try to do, it's not enough. And that really bothered me. And playing a sport like basketball, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm not. It doesn't look like it's going my way, and I can't really thrive unless I do grow. And I remember just early on in high school, around my sophomore year, I to junior year, I kind of the realization has been kind of hitting me where it's like, oh, okay, I don't think I'm gonna grow. I think I'm gonna stay at this height no matter how hard I try. And reality start to set in, and that's where you know the insecurity just kind of got to me, and it's just like, man, I just, like, you ponder on it and you reflect on it. It's like, man, I thought at least I could do things to make me a little taller, do the things I need to do, but it didn't really make a difference. Maybe even if I didn't do those things, drinking milk, sleeping enough, or doing whatever is needed to try to help me grow, maybe I just would end up at the same height anyway. And so, you know, um, especially playing with the sport like basketball, it's like, oh, I'm so limited with like my height. Like I can't even do the things that other people can do when they're at a greater height, when they have these athleticism. That's why everything just revolved around height. And then once I have the height, then I could always like work out or you know um, do certain types of exercises to increase other types of athleticism. So because I put so much weight on that and I put so much value in height, I think because I didn't have what I desired, that was what brought the insecurity. Is because I was let down. I didn't meet the expectation, and because I didn't meet it, I didn't meet that standard that I set for myself. Then there was this feeling of disappointment, and that disappointment, that letdown, contributed to that insecurity. And it was there along the way because I was always short. But when it finally set in, and you kind of understand that this was not going to happen, it was not going to meet the expectation that you wanted. It There's like years where I just thought about, I always look back and I'm always thinking like, what if this, what if that? Like, man, if I was like 6 foot, or if I was like 6'4", you know how good I would be in basketball. You know how well I would have excelled in my craft. And that always bothered me, especially from later years in high school to like college. Um, I always thought about that. I always thought about the what if, and because I couldn't I can get to that level. I can achieve where I wanted to be due to certain limitations and a lot of things that were probably just out of my control too. And you just you just develop that insecurity, and that's just stuck around and just kind of, it stifled that confidence that I had in myself and brought a lot of doubt. And that really hit me for a while because I put so much value and weight into that, into becoming like this great basketball player, into growing. It all tied in together. And because I didn't achieve what I wanted to strive for, it became a big letdown. And there was this period of time where I had to learn how to deal with it. And at first, I didn't know how to. I didn't realize how much of a insecurity that was in my life until probably post grad, and when I got into my adulthood, I came to the realization that those it's I think eventually I just let it go. Like, why am I thinking about this? Why do I need to be like, it's said and done. I gave it what I had. I did the best I could, and that's the outcome. And I think what helped was, at least what helped dealing with that specific insecurity, was just accepting the reality and being at peace with it, that this is just the outcome. Yes, you can make all these excuses, and there's all these limitations, and they're all justified. And maybe what if I had certain attributes, maybe I would have been a lot better, and maybe I would have kept playing basketball or playing at a higher level. But then over time, I just realized, like, yeah, maybe, but at this point in time, it doesn't really matter anymore. It's just the way it is. Just take what you learned along the way, take all the lessons, and just move on with your life. And I think when I came to that realization, that I just let go of that and just move on with my life, then I believe like that's where that specific insecurity just kind of went away. It just wasn't there anymore. Um And I would also share with you another insecurity. Like, I think another thing is too, when you're living in like a first world country, when it's all about education and striving and going to the best college and coming out with the best job, there's also insecurity, and there's this comparison. There's also the comparison with athletics too, but it's the same for academics, for social status and getting a great job. And there was insecurity there too. I think as a student, I was a good student. I got decent grades. I wasn't a valedictorian. Um, and uh, I got into a 4-year university. It wasn't the best school. It was not an Ivy League school. Maybe it wasn't one of the top schools, but it was a decent school for its value, right? And so, but even there, like, because I wasn't the best, because there are people better than me, and you were valued, peers, especially kids that were more academically driven, and where parents kind of ingrained in them that school success was everything in life. When you place all that weight into that, and then you got these kids talking about, oh, well, look at the grades I got, my GPA, my SAT scores, and all that, and look at the school I got into, and all that, and like, because I wasn't top tier and I was comparing myself to other people, yeah, like, I'm always looking up, and because I was at the bottom looking up, it seemed like I wasn't good enough, right? And that's where a lot of insecurity lied as well. It's just like, you compare yourself on performance, academic performance, and you just, when I was in high school, college, you just felt like you weren't good enough, and I was insecure about that too for the longest time. Now that in my adulthood, you realize, like, oh man, these things, they do matter. Don't get me wrong. They are very important, and especially for certain trades and certain careers, like, it is needed to excel in the academic route, to, go to get your bachelor's, to get a master's and PhD, especially if you want to stay in education, you want to be a professor, things like that, or, certain trades like being a lawyer, being a doctor, certain professions, like, those require a large amounts of education, and it is needed, and it is valuable. There's no denying that. But you come to realize, like, in life, there's other things that matter more than just that in itself. And I think when I realized that too, about that, like, I realized all this comparing and going to school, like, now, like, I don't care as much as what schools they come out of, um, like, what their GPA is. It doesn't really matter as much. Although, again, as I mentioned, like, sometimes, like, it is needed for you to strive and do really well in your academics, for you to get in certain schools, to follow a certain career path. And I don't deny that. But what could get lost is just placing too much value in that. And if you're not good enough, is um, then having these insecurities because of your shortcomings. And so, I realized, like, it wasn't just that valuable as I thought it was in the past. And so that made me, again, let go of that specific insecurity, and just, um, once I came to those realizations of what really mattered in life, and what I valued wasn't based on those things, or performances, or, you know those achievements. It's just, there are much more important things in life that I valued, that I realized, and I was able to let go of those things, and along with that, let go of those insecurities. And I think it's helped me to be a more secure person, and make me realize that there's just more foundational values, core beliefs that I stand by, and principles that I stand by now that don't waver as much, rather than placing value into things that will come and go, or it's placing value in things that are a bit more superficial or more based on just like outward appearance, or um maybe worldly goals, I would say. I think that's the best way to put it. And I think I don't want to take away the fact that those things are good and to strive for these things, but the thing is, if you put too much weight into that, if you put everything, like all your eggs in one basket, and you make that everything, then I think that's where you could fall into a place of insecurity when you don't achieve the things that you do. And even if you were to achieve everything in the world, does that still make you the most insecure, or sorry, even if you were to achieve everything in the world, does that make you the most secure person in the world? Maybe not. Maybe there's still insecurities. Maybe people, the most driven people and the most successful people, always revert back to, you know, their insecurities, or they revert back to the place where they didn't succeed. And that, in a sense, like that can be very helpful because it does fuel them and motivate them to work harder. And we all need that fuel, and people find different ways in fueling themselves to motivate to work hard and to achieve a lot of great things, even from their past, and certain things that they didn't achieve when they were younger. And I could definitely see benefits to that too. But what's that drive coming from? A place of insecurity? I mean, and can you find drive and be motivated in a way where it doesn't come from a insecure place, but maybe more so from a place of just maybe wanting to do good, or maybe being motivated out of compassion, or to do something for other people, to be selfless. I feel like there could be other ways where you could probably motivate yourself, and it doesn't have to come from an insecure place. But that's how some people deal with insecurity. And so, again, for me, I guess my one takeaway, if you were to take away something from this, is just you come when you're at peace with just the reality of it, and know that this is just what happened, this is the outcome. You just you just see the truth in everything, in all that has happened, and you realize where you're at in your present time right now, and you just accept it. Just accept the reality. There's some things that you can make adjustments, but there may be things that are out of your control. That's set and done. It's set in stone, right? I always feel like the sooner you just accept it, that you're at peace with it, you could just move on. And that insecurity just doesn't have that stronghold over you anymore. And that personally has helped me with a lot of things. I mean, even now there's still some things that still kind of bother me, but I don't let it get to me. It doesn't, like, those insecurities doesn't make me like lash out at people as maybe I used to in the past, or I get offended, I get really sensitive about certain things. But now that I'm more secure than I used to be, I still deal with insecurities, but it's just, again, being able to navigate through that, being able to kind of accept the reality, make the adjustments, what you need to do if you can, and, you know, just move on. And I think when you do that, um, you could be a lot more grounded, and more secure in yourself. And you don't have to let these insecurities take a hold of you and control you and make you do things and make you act out in negative ways around you. Um, and you don't have to always take yourself too seriously. So hopefully that was helpful. This was brief, but that was kind of my take on how I deal with insecurities. And it's very brief too. I mean, we could definitely go extensive about on the topic of insecurity, how, you know, and talk about the core values of what really matters more, to help you become more secure. And maybe that's another conversation on another podcast episode. But in the meantime, that's what I wanted to share with you, and hope that that was helpful. We all have insecurities. It's just a matter of fact, right? But it's how you deal with it, right? And if you let it take a hold of you, if you could just let it go and just move on and develop a much grander perspective in life, where it allows you to realize, like, these things that you're insecure about just really don't matter. There's probably not even a reason to be insecure about in the first place. So thank you once again, guys, for listening to this episode. I hope you guys got something out of it. If you guys disagree or you don't like it, then you guys can share it in the comment section below. If you do like this content, drop a like for this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification button. It'll help me out a lot. It will definitely motivate me to put out more episodes, and you could definitely share some topics that you would like me to go over, and maybe I could get my piece about it. Until then, guys, I will see you guys on the next one. Peace.